you reach a stage where you're just like, I am enough.
Yeah.
And this is enough.
That's it.
And that's that on
That's
that,
it. That's it, yeah.
and what's for me will align.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that has been for me that has ever missed me.
Hello, Wisdom and Wellness family. Welcome to another episode. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, sharing the podcast with everybody. We really, really appreciate it. Today is a big one for me. I'm sitting with one of the most incredible businesswomen in, I don't even want to say South Africa, I just want to say globally. I'm sitting with Linda Mabhena-Olagunju. She's a founder and CEO of DLO Energy Group Resources. Globally, she's one of the first Black women to own renewable power plants, a unique voice on climate change, a seasoned businesswoman, executive, and speaker. How does it feel to be you?
Exhausting at times.
I can imagine. Literally, I said to a friend, I was like, I was reading up and watching all your interviews, and it's like, I want to know the person behind all of this because it looks exciting, it looks admirable, but I'm like, there's a whole lot of sacrifice that's going on behind there.
No, definitely.
Let's start with some icebreakers and then we'll get in the conversation.
Okay.
If your house was burning down, what 3 objects would you try to save?
My kids.
No,
One.
Kids excluded, family excluded.
Okay, family excluded. Okay, that makes it a bit easier. My phone,
Okay.
my laptop,
Okay.
my bag collection.
How many? How many
Whatever I
bags are
could
we
carry, whatever I could carry.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you on the bag collection. Okay, if you could go back to any time period of your life, what time would it be and why?
That's an interesting one. High school.
Really?
I went to the National School of Arts, and I am so blessed to have gone to that school because we were allowed to be ourselves. We were reading, Freud and therapy. We were going through therapy in a group setting, if I can say that. And it was just the best expression of ourselves in an environment where we were learning ourselves. I think we had a very good high school experience.
You got to be free and like discover yourself in a safe space.
We did. And I
Yeah.
think without that experience, I wouldn't be as authentic as I am today and showing up present, as myself fully.
Okay,
Yeah.
love that. Your get up and go song.
There's so many. Uh, It's a bit of a depressing song. Right now I'm listening to Asake, It's Lonely at the Top.
Asake Lonely at the top.
He's a Nigerian artist,
Okay.
and I absolutely love that song because I think he just encapsulates the feelings that come with where there's success in inverted commas,
Yeah.
but the feelings of how that journey is also quite a lonely and challenging journey.
Yeah.
So it's not a dancey song, but it's a song that's sort of like keep on going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Last one. Tell me the high point of this week.
High point of this week has got nothing to do with me, but it has to do with a friend who has been going through some challenges, and she won a very big contract. And the joy when good things happen to good people.
Yeah.
So it's not my highlight, but
Yeah.
that highlight of her joy and sharing in that joy. And
Yeah.
I was the first person she called when
Yeah.
she heard the news.
Yeah.
And just finally seeing a breakthrough come through for a friend.
Yeah.
That was
amazing.
the highlight. Yeah.
I feel like when we experience, especially when you go through journeys or just sad times with people and they finally get like something good, it feels like an exhale for everyone. It's just like,
It is, and it's also proof of God's omnipotence,
Yeah.
right? That He can literally pull you out of a storm and just rewrite the chapter.
Yeah.
Like, I think that for me, that was just proof of God's work.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen you use the word God's omnipotence quite a lot. What is it? What does that mean to you? And what is it about God's omnipotence specifically that you speak of Him that way?
I think sometimes God elevates people who society may not necessarily deem them worthy of elevation.
Yeah.
And He'll use you to show how powerful He is. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean by it. Is like I think my life has been a life of like I shouldn't have, the way my career path went, is very unconventional. I shouldn't be where I am.
You.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And that's proof. I'm living proof of God's power and omnipotence. And some of the rooms I've been in, the people I've met, the things I've accomplished, sometimes you can literally feel yourself having the outer body experience and saying, this is God saying, this is what I'm capable of doing through you and to inspire others through you. Yeah.
God has a habit of saying, well, if not you, then who? And also, I need to use you so that other people like you can feel like, oh, okay, if God can use her, then surely he can use me too.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to speak about your work.
Okay. Yay!
I don't want to speak about your work. I think your work really does speak for itself. However, I do want to understand your upbringing. Who gave you the permission? Who affirmed, or what kind of home did you come from where you could stand and be a first? Either a first woman or a first black woman or a first this. Who gave you that permission? What does your childhood look like?
Very deep questions you're asking. Ironically, this question comes at an interesting time where I'm reading Women Who Run with Wolves.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And it talks about the various, and I'm still at the beginning, right? Because it's a book that requires work.
Yeah.
And I always say, whenever I pick up a book, you need to be ready for the journey.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So when I look, and to answer your question, I can't pin it down to one person. There were women in my lives that I saw different aspects that I took from.
Yeah.
So I took certain OCDs from my mom. I would say that my mom is she's a 5 a.m. person, hard worker.
Yeah.
I took, I would say I observed my aunt, her sister, become the first. She was the first, one of the first black female town planners in this country. Okay. And I observed her work ethic, and I saw her in terms of what she built in terms of being a business person. My grandmother as well.
Yeah.
Her work ethic was insane. She was a home builder. So that's the aspect I also take from my home life, because I love to cook, I love to bake, I love to be present as a mom. So there's certain aspects I took from different women. But also, I think we grew up seeing very hardworking women.
Yeah.
But we didn't see women who were relaxed. And I remember seeing like a post on Instagram recently where I didn't see women of leisure.
Yeah, women resting.
Who were resting.
Yeah.
And as I transition to my 40s, I want to be those women who are more chilled. And not just about only the external accomplishments, but also my focus now is really on the internal accomplishments.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Has your path, and I mean, you already answered that your path hasn't been linear, but did you know that this is where you'd end up? One, in the field you're in the energy sector, one, and two, I mean, you studied law, right? And two, in a space where just as you're about to turn 40, like, okay, I'm accomplished, it's great and all. However, I want to be a woman who also shows rest.
To your first point, and again, this is a God thing. I remember picking up a book. I was an early reader myself, and I remember picking up a book that had the map of Africa, and it showed all of the natural resources in each country on the continent. Yet we still ranked as one of the poorest continents in the world. Yeah. And I've always hated injustice as a child. So growing up within that transition between apartheid and, freedom, or the new democracy, the new dawn. So I experienced both apartheid and I experienced living under the so-called new dawn in a way, and for me, injustice is what drew me to law, right? Because I wanted to be knowledgeable about what my rights are. So even at school, I was one of those who was always fighting. I was the one who was starting the strikes and gathering the students. I was always active in my student movement. Even at UCT, I was part of the Black Law Students Society. Sure. I would go and teach in townships. I always wanted to change things within my community, right? So why electricity? It's because if you look at economic performance, it is linked to electricity and power. Yeah. So I wanted to be involved in something that was going to uplift our continent. Sure. Make it easier for people to do business. So I've always known I'd be an entrepreneur, but I also wanted to be an entrepreneur that contributed beyond myself, if I can call it that way. And I found the space in renewable energy, but I found it in a very indirect way as well.
Yeah.
Again, God, because I went to Scotland to study an oil and gas linked degree. I got a scholarship to go there, and I ended up being an admin assistant to the Aberdeen City Council, and they were building their first offshore wind farm. And that's how I got into renewable energy, reading up on it. And we're having the blackouts here in South Africa. And I was like, how can I bring this back home? How can we start solving and solutioning our power crisis? And that's how I got here. Then I think you asked about
the woman of rest.
The woman
who
of rest
shows
part.
Rest.
You know, I think as Black women, we wear struggle like it's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And also, like, the struggle, we're always taught hard work and the struggle. And I do
Hustle,
believe,
boss babe,
yes. But I also believe money, success is also energy. It's also what I think we have a very misguided relationship with money and success. We typically as Black people believe you have to do so much hard work
to earn it.
To earn it.
Yeah.
We're undeserving, we're unworthy.
Yes.
But I think once you do the work internally with yourself around, I am worthy. I am enough. Just by being. Right? You stop operating from a place of seeking the external validation and operating from a place of scarcity.
Yes.
And then you start operating from a place of abundance. Once that switch happened within me, and it happened this year predominantly.
This year?
Yes.
Why am I finding that so hard to believe?
It only happened this year. No, like in the true sense, because I've always, and I mean, I still believe, look, I'm not saying that you're going to just rock up and
like,
do nothing and then I'm abundant and everything flows to me. No.
Manifest candles.
I think if you've paid your dues as well and you've done the work, right? I do believe at some point you need to rest in your capabilities and your abilities to attract the opportunities that are due to you, but you must also feel worthy of those opportunities. So if you're always showing up with this imposter syndrome, how
you repel it.
Will you?
I read the book The Secret. I don't know if you've ever read it.
Have.
I read it in 2018 and it literally it changed my life. I don't speak a lot about it because there's certain things I don't agree with, but there's so much that I learned from it, where it's like like what you're saying, it's like you first need to be in that place of I am worthy, I am deserving, and then everything needs to flow from that. But like you said, I think we wear this badge, and particularly as Black people, that we need to earn everything. We need to earn our place. We need to show that we've worked hard for these things. And it's like, for me this year, my shift was I need to go from doing and just being. And it's like what you said, it's a combination of we have to do the hard work and all of that, but more than anything, it needs to start from a place of being. Like I am an abundant person, and everything that I do flows from that place of abundance.
And I mean, it's the conditioning. It's like you said, the examples we grew up seeing, right? It's the proving. It's the wanting to fit in and belong, you know? And if you reach a stage where you're just like, I am enough, and this is enough.
That's it.
And that's that on that, you know, and what's for me will align. And there's nothing that has been for me that has ever missed me.
Sure.
You know?
And you need to really believe that.
And that's the only way you can actually be happy for people.
Sure.
Right? People, because, that's the only way you can actually really be happy for people, is that you need to know it wasn't for you. It's not for you. And not everything can be for you. You know?
You can pray until you go hot, but if it's not, it's not.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, tell me, when it comes to navigating leadership as a woman, I've found it rather tricky. Because there's an element of, for me personally, I haven't seen a lot of direct leaders in my family, women who started the business and ran the business. So it's been tricky for me. It's okay, I have this side of me that's a lot like my dad, and maybe that's why he ran a business. But I also need a side of me I also have a side of me that's soft. But every time I bring that part, I feel like my business does not progress. So how have you navigated leadership as a woman? Firstly, particularly because you're in a very male-dominated space, and two, just being fully yourself. Like, I was shocked to hear you say you like baking, you like cooking. So how do you make sure that you navigate as a leader authentically?
I always say this to anyone who wants to start a business that, are you sure? Because you never stop when you start a business, right?
Yeah.
You're never off.
Yeah.
So I found a way to integrate my business into my life.
Yeah.
So I used to work in a law firm, and I found that law firm environment, for me anyway, very toxic.
Yeah.
Because you cannot present as yourself in that corporate environment where it's very like, and I've got a wacky mix of being very corporatized, but also very creative.
Yeah.
Hence why I went to the National School of Arts, right? So I got to a stage where I was like, if I'm going to do this on my own, I have to be able to show up as Linda in all the spaces I occupy. And I cannot wear a mask all the time.
Yeah.
It's either you get it, you like it, or you don't. And funnily enough, the best business I've done has been with people who know myself, who know me fully, right? The complete sides. So a friend of mine was like, how do you navigate from meeting like the president one day and you're dancing to Amapiano the next day? I was like, does the president not listen to music? Whether it's jazz or whatever, somebody taps their feet to something. These are human beings, right? And I think that's the other thing. When you humanize people and you actually realize there's a human being behind that title and that success, and they actually just want to be seen,
That's all what we want.
You start to have authentic relationships with people because they also trust you. So business is built on trust. So people can see when you're wearing a mask, and a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people can see that. So it doesn't really do you any good, and it actually slows down your growth and progression. Another thing is I like my home life. I like my kids. I like cooking for them, and I don't think we are one-dimensional as people. They're very different interests and facets to us. So I don't know if you saw this week the article about the Goldman Sachs CEO who moonlights as a DJ, and he had to quit because people are saying, oh, the company is not performing because of this side gig. I'm like, no, if you're happy and you're showing up happy at work, you're performing better.
That's true. That's true.
And for me, I really just don't have the energy to wear a mask anymore. No.
Have you ever found yourself having to tone down who you are?
I have. People always request that of you. Like the request can be made, but access can be denied as well.
Okay, I love that. The request can be made, but access can be denied. Okay.
I worked too hard to be me, to have someone sort of. I'll give you a simple example now. Like people are like, oh no, with everything that's going on in Palestine or whatever, don't put up anything. Like about you're a business leader. Just shut it. I'm like, where there is injustice in the world, irrespective of where it is, I am impacted. Firstly, as a human being. Secondly, as a South African who has, lived through the horrors of apartheid. And it is okay to ask questions. It is okay to voice opinions. We cannot be living in a world where we are afraid to be ourselves because we are afraid someone's going to stop our checks.
Accurate.
What kind of a world are we living in, and what kind of a world are we encouraging our children to live in? I think that once you do that, there's too much fear because people accumulate things and then the things own them, right? They're too afraid to lose those things. And they don't realize that it's God who gives you those things, and it's God who can take those things away. So for me, I think that once you go down that path of being too cautious, being too worried about your public image, you run the risk of losing yourself.
It's prison. Sounds like prison. You touch, and it's my question here. I spoke about it this week, and I was talking about I've ditched the idea of balance, and I'm leaning into integration. And I'm so glad you touched on it. How do you define balance, and how do you define integration, and what does integration look like for you right now?
Oh, so for me, integration, I'll start with the integration because balance is tricky.
That's literally what I said.
It,
Balance
it
is
really,
tricky.
it really is, because there's some days or some weeks where it's like kumbaya.
Yeah.
I'm meditating, I'm yogaing, I'm working out. Everything is
Everything's
just
just
zen,
going.
and it just takes one phone call,
And then just like,
one
I'm
thing,
done with this life.
and then you're back to square one, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, this year has been so profound for me. So I've learned to bounce back from those low moments quicker, because I used to be one of those people. I'm an empath and I feel my feelings. Something would knock me out for like a couple of days, and my husband would be like, "What? Okay, it has happened. It has happened. Why
Yeah.
are you marinating in that emotion?"
Yeah, sure.
And I've learned now to sort of pick myself up a bit faster and accept things a lot, because I've been through so much that if I were to sit and dwell, on every single thing, I would really not get anything done.
Yeah.
And I think this year was the year where I really began my journey of mastering my mental strength. I must be honest, because a lot happened. But in terms of integration, I would say integration for me is realizing that I am constantly working,
Yeah.
but I do things differently. So I try and work from home as much as I can.
Yeah.
I try and have fun on my work trips. So I make sure every trip I take, I am having a good time whilst I'm there.
Yeah.
I do the things I'm there for,
Yeah.
but I also incorporate fun into everything I do. And I also, I think like just everyone who works with me knows my kids come first.
Yeah.
So sorry. Oh, really? This meeting has to be extended? Okay, sorry, I've got a school run. Like it has to, everyone
Everything is
who works
around
with
that.
me is
Yeah.
around that. So I've integrated my
Sure.
kids into my business. Because I mean, that's one of the points of why I have a business, is around them, but also wanting to be a present mom. So integration for me again goes back to authenticity, because if you're honest with the people that work with you and they know how you work and your working style, they're okay. But that doesn't mean like I'm just kumbayaring.
Yeah.
I work late nights, so I still do the mummy things from 3. It's homework, it's reading, it's all of that. 7:30 the kids are in bed. My day still continues,
Sure.
unfortunately, because I've got a ton of work to still do. So
Sure.
that's how I integrate. It's just I try and weave the two together.
Everything in.
Yeah.
What does wellness look like to you right now?
Wellness to me looks like the commitment I've made to myself to work out at least 4 times a week.
Okay.
And I do that because I find I'm more happier when I do. Right? Wellness to me looks like making time for journaling. I've tried meditation and failed so many times. I am still trying. I'm a work in
Do
progress.
you try
of
sit
that.
on the carpet
I
and do the whole?
I just can't
For me,
concentrate. I
what
start
a-
doing a to-do list in my head. That's the issue.
For me,
Yeah.
a walk is meditation.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. And being in nature once a week.
Yeah.
So I go on these morning mother-daughter walks with my firstborn, because
Yeah.
she's at least old enough.
Yeah.
I enjoy those because one, we're taking in the nature,
Yeah.
but two, it's a time for me to also impart my knowledge
Yeah.
on her, because
Yeah.
our kids spend so much time at school.
Yeah.
We're not the biggest influence in their lives. Irrespective of who you think you are, like what matters more is teacher, coach, and friends.
Yeah.
So it's the time I think I get to really just impart some of the belief systems that I want her to have, and we just get to chat.
Yeah.
So, and then also wellness for me looks like planning fun things for myself. So especially for next year, I just was like, okay, each year now, let me be intentional. The vacation with the kids went so amazingly. Let me make sure I do that one every year for them going forward, because now I've tested that they can stay put in a flight for at least 8.5 hours.
Yeah.
So let me just test their boundaries each year
Yeah.
and see what they can do. Yeah.
What's the hardest lesson you've learned about life?
Phew, human relations, hey.
Yeah.
Human relations are tricky. I think the hardest lesson I've learned in life is that somehow, even how people treat you or deal with you may not be fair, but don't allow it to change who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Don't reduce yourself. And I was saying to my husband yesterday, I was so proud that this lady scratched my car yesterday. She was with her kids, and I approached her calmly,
Yeah.
like my old self, you know, would have maybe been like a bit angry, but I was like, can we exchange details
Yeah.
so we can deal with this? I can see you with your kids. And she gave me this very negative energy, shouting, oh, I didn't scratch your car, denying it, the paintwork is there. You know, it's all there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about her. It was, I think that was again a test from God to say, have you actually
Let's
changed?
see.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I say to her, I'm not going to really engage in this. I wish you a pleasant day. I've taken your details
Yeah.
of your car. Let's leave it at that. You know, and I walked away. Human relations will test you because unfortunately people are disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
People are
are.
people.
People are, and I think that the biggest hurt in my life has been expecting me from others.
Yes. I don't know who said this, but expecting you from others is just
Yeah,
disaster waiting to happen.
it is, right? Because people are capable of only being themselves.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that, but you can also accept and set boundaries.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think I'm in a place in my life where I can love people now from afar
Yeah.
or with limited access
Yeah.
to me
Yeah.
because I'm also self-protecting. So
Yeah.
some of the, and people see this as a bad thing, especially for black women, where you're just like, yes, I love you, but from afar. You don't have to be besties with everyone, or you don't have to be braiding each other's hair. But it also doesn't mean you have to be sworn enemies.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also don't believe in carrying that negative energy
Yeah.
in me.
Yeah.
And also, I've stopped addressing people on things they know that they've done wrong.
That's wisdom. It's
Yeah,
growth.
no.
Yeah.
I've stopped addressing. I think people know what they've done wrong.
Yeah.
And people are not always worthy of your explanation of your
Yeah.
feelings
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. I think it also comes from that. It's like a validation thing, that external thing. It's like it doesn't matter anymore. My children are my biggest teachers. What is the biggest lessons or some of the most beautiful lessons that you continue to take from your girls?
Oh, they're so wise, those girls.
Yep. Those kids are wise.
Beyond their years.
Yeah.
But I would say they teach me to be present. They really do. Because on the days where it's stressful and I'm working, they'll be like, Mommy, don't you think you need a break now?
Wow.
Don't you think you want to come play with us, come jump with us? So they keep me, to your earlier question, balanced, because when they ask, it's harder to say no. And therefore I end up going to play. And in that playing, I also release. So they've been my big, and also I've gotten to heal a lot of things through my kids. Because I've gotten to give them the love and nurturing, that we all crave, and I'm very mindful of giving them a very good childhood that they're not going to have to heal from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I said that to my therapist. I said, look, if there's one thing, I just don't want to be the reason my kids are in therapy. And that's going to happen and they're going to get angry. But
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, no one is a perfect parent,
Yes,
right? I just
absolutely.
think that we all, for me, what makes a great parent is a parent that wants to learn where they've gone wrong.
Yes.
A parent that's open to apologizing, a parent that's open to admitting where they've been
Being wrong. Yeah.
And I mean, there are times where I've just yelled at my kids from frustration because I'm dealing with other stuff, and I will still go and I'll say, you know what, that wasn't about you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. For me, I found that I did that with my child. My daughter, I actually grabbed something. I just took something from her and she didn't like it. And she expressed, because she's very expressive, and she's like, I don't appreciate that. And I came back and I said, I'm so sorry. That was so rude of me. And it's that permission thing again. It's almost like I gave her permission to make mistakes. Like I showed her that mommy also makes mistakes. Mommy also just goes off sometimes, but then you can always come back from it. And it was such a simple, but for me, like a very important moment that my kids need to see me, one, making mistakes, and two, how I come back from that mistake, or how I come back from being a horrible, acting out of character.
It's so important to be honest with our kids as well, because we grew up in so much secrecy, right? The rooms where the adults speak, and you can see there's something wrong, but you're not allowed to be there. So, and one of the things my husband was like, it's important for them to know what's going on with things consistently, you know, and, you know, and I'm starting to do that. I mean, there are awkward talks now about like, where do babies come from? And, you know, you're just like, okay,
I'm not there yet.
you know, where you just like little things like that, and you just have to, because otherwise they get the misinformation from others.
Yeah.
You know, so you want to be that teacher,
Yeah.
rather they
Information
get it
comes
from
from
you.
me. Yeah, my son the other day, I don't know what he was holding. So we have a lot of pregnant people in the family, and then he said he's pregnant.
Yes.
Do I explain it now? But he's 3.
Yeah, and it's in little things. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to do the full anatomy stuff, but
yes.
it's in little ways
Yeah.
that you can start to be honest.
Yeah.
you know.
My last question: what do you know about God for sure?
Ooh, what I know about God for sure is that He will always show up. He will always show up. In the worst of times, in the most challenging times, He will always show up.
Always, always.